This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to yet another episode of Lembit Opik Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and tell it like it is as best we can. Coming up today, we're going to be talking about a situation which is developing quite fast. And if you're watching this on the archive, maybe you know the outcome. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, a woman with barely any qualifications, giving lots of lazy school children hope, seems to be in trouble because she bought an £800,000 house. The chance of fine. Where did the tax go? Apparently still in her pocket. That is the problem. Now, this is a moving story. So if you are watching it from that archive, you may already know if she survived this scandal or if she did not. Before we talk about that with a wonderful guest describing herself only as woman, you'll see all about that in just a minute. Great pronoun. Is that a pronoun? I'm not sure. I want to remind you, lots of new shows coming up here. We've got Full Throttle, which is at Full Throttle, all about transport, thanks to the Alliance of British Drivers, and you really should join them if you are like one of 37 million other road users who perhaps don't like the direction that the government's taking. We've got Tim Scott Uncancelled. We've got Lib and Let Die with my old parliamentary colleague, or former parliamentary colleague, Mark Oaten. So many more shows as well. If you've got a show idea, do let me know. The schedule's getting pretty full now, but we will still be very interested in your views. And here's a little bit of breaking news. We're thinking of going on a live tour, taking this around the country. I was speaking to an esteemed colleague last night. He said we need to go and meet you, dear viewers, around the country. If you think that's a good idea, do let me know. Put that in the comments. But let's get back to somebody who's been rather beleaguered of late. It hasn't been a really great year for her. She's made various gaffes. It's Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, who left school with no qualifications, but then went on to be the second most powerful person, some would say, in the Labour Party as Deputy Leader, and also appointed Deputy Prime Minister. So she got all that way, suggesting that you don't really need to have qualifications to make it. Or perhaps her lack of education has caused her to be in a problem where she's being criticised for not having paid enough tax. Well, who's right, who's wrong? This is by nature an evolving story, so it could be out of date quite soon. But it's important enough for us to discuss today. Joining me now is Justine Thomas, a woman, no less. Is that a pronoun?
Good morning, Lembit.
Good day to you. Is it a pronoun, woman?
I don't know if it's a pronoun, but it's a fact, and I like to deal in facts. So let us stick to the facts. I think that is a very important fact. It's we can have all sorts of job titles, but I think woman works because it's the fundamental part of what I am.
You could be thrown off an aircraft. You could be arrested by armed guards if you said woman. They would say that you're being pejorative to the trans community by saying that. Be careful what you say going through Heathrow Airport. One of my fellow presenters, Mehdi, got himself into trouble going to America by making a crass joke on his form. That's for another time. You'll find all about that on Poor Kids and White Kids. I'm shamelessly promoting my shows, but let's talk about the woman of the hour. Angela Rayner, you've got something in common with her. She's a woman too.
She is a woman as well. I'm not sure that is entirely relevant, but apparently the fact she's a working class woman is very, very relevant to the situation that she finds herself. And what a situation we've seen evolve over the last few days. It's utterly astonishing what's going on, quite frankly. We've got a Deputy Prime Minister who is completely at the centre of a scandal, and one of which, quite frankly, reeks of utter hypocrisy. I think most people in this country are sick of politicians telling us how to live our lives and then actually seeing that behind the scenes they're choosing to live their lives in a slightly different way. And clearly, if you are a woman in the Labour Party, the easiest way to deal with this seems to be to put yourself in front of the cameras and shed a few tears. And I think the only thing that we can say in Angela Rayner's defence about her tearful contribution to Beth Rigby's interview on Sky yesterday was that I think Rachel Reeves's tears cost about £500 million each, didn't they? But I don't think I don't think Angela Rayner's have caused that much of a dip in the economy. So yeah, there's definitely lots to look at in terms of this ever evolving story. What's your take on it?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned Rachel Reeves having a tearful episode in Parliament. Never forget that. Actually, I think we've probably got a clip of that you mentioned. There she is. There's the teary Rachel Reeves. Poor Rachel.
Poor Rachel. Worst day of her life. And look, I'm never going to belittle anybody for crying, but look, you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, you're the Deputy Prime Minister, the top two women that Labour have ever had in the party. And the highest positions that any woman from a Labour government has ever served in the government, and within a year or so of the Labour government, they're both in tears. So I think that kind of represents actually how we all feel about this Labour government. So they're not the only ones who want to cry, believe me.
There she is, that poor woman. You know what? I know who you're working for. You're actually working for Angela Rayner, because you've deflected us from her to talk about Rachel Greaves. Greaves for Britain.
Well, maybe Rachel Reeves is where she gets her financial advice from. I don't know. That in and of itself might explain a few things. I mean, clearly, she has claimed, I think everybody by now will know the story. There's the saga of the three homes, and that she hasn't paid enough stamp duty. I think what's emerged more recently is she said that there was a court order that prevented her from speaking about the circumstances to do with the trust that was put in place for her son, which I understand there was a medical negligence claim, which was settled, and money was put in a trust to care for him. Absolutely no problem with that. That sounds all right and proper to me. It also sounds fairly right and proper that parents would be the trustees of a trust for their children. I have heard some comments or seen comments online that why on earth are they the trustees of that trust? Well, I would imagine that the people who are very best placed to look after money for children are the parents of those children. And of course, the best people to make decisions for their children are the parents of the children. But I think there's a lot of murky water here. I mean, one of the things that I can't quite understand is, even if you believed it was in the best interest of your child to take money from a trust to buy a property, and of course, prima facie, that sounds completely laudable. Why on earth would anybody not want to do that? It's a rather strange coincidence that just at the point you decide it would be in your child's interest for them to fully own a property, that you sell them part of said property, and you suddenly decide to buy a house or a flat hundreds of miles away that is nowhere near your parliamentary constituency, and which you make some kind of claim that you need to be closer to London. It's going to take about 2 hours or 2.5 hours on a bad day to drive from Brighton to London. And doesn't she have a grace and favour apartment in London as the Deputy Prime Minister? So I think that's there for that purpose. So the logic here is slightly confounding me as a starting point. And I think one other quick point I would make, one thing that I think has been fundamentally missed when she's talking about the advice that she received, my understanding is, but stands to be corrected, is that Shoesmith's law firm, which is a legal 500, it's a top tier law firm that was involved in the creation of the trust and the settlement agreement from the NHS. absolutely fail to believe that they did not advise her and her husband at the time when they became trustees of that trust, that if that was put into any type of property, that they had legal obligations in relation to that property. I believe that they would have had that advice at the time. So I can't believe that she didn't know that she should have taken additional steps in regards to buying another property.
Well, she's definitely damaging the reputation of that company because you would go to them to get a good advice. Incidentally, Justine, I'm impressed that as a working class woman, she is rich enough to get that kind of advice. Presumably, she assumes that every working class person can get the same advice. But why get the advice if it's so bad? There's an interesting point here as well. Daily Mail says there, Council House Gate, they're pushing it a bit there, but Rayner on the ropes. She flounders an interview and refuses to publish that legal advice. That's an interesting point. And there she is being all cuddly, as I'm sure any woman would like to be, next to Keir Starmer, who promised change, but doesn't seem to be delivering very much change when it comes to probity. Now, this is an interesting thing. You said that you don't have an issue with her investing in her kid's future. I agree with you, actually. I have nothing to say about her divorce, nothing to say about her personal circumstances, but I've got a lot to say about the fact that she herself, in my view, is being a hypocrite.
Yes.
She's been slamming and whinging and bitching about the Conservatives.
Yeah.
That's I suppose I don't care where she lives. If she wants to do a 265-mile commute every day from her home to her constituency office, each way, by the way, 11 hours in the car.
Yes.
Doesn't sleep very much, presumably. That's up to her. It's actually up to her.
Absolutely.
But my issue is she's the housing minister. She's responsible for housing. And she's complained and whinged about how terrible the Conservatives are. I think I'm told that we have a clip of her talking about the Conservatives in a rather aggressive way. I think she called them scum or something. Do you remember?
Tory scum, I think, was the line.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. I think we've got something about it here.
Success.
Sakir, why aren't you cutting through more?
The moment he shows the country he can make an impact. If his problem is a tendency to say too little
Could we have one question with you?
and make too few headlines, you can't say the same about his deputy. Angela Rayner, who's given a speech to Labour members in which she described the Tories like this.
It cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic...
Well, there we go. Sorry about that video quality. Heads will roll for that. But I think you get the picture there. Tory
And I think, and actually, quick aside, I think, you know, the jeering and the clapping says as much about the people who are in that room as it does about Angela Rayner herself, actually. And I'm afraid I expect the highest standards from people who enter into public life. It is, as you will understand, you're an ex-parliamentarian. I've held an elected public office, not as lofty as yours, but ultimately you enter into life and you do actually agree to be bound by certain principles. I don't know if you will remember the Nolan sisters. In fact, some of their songs are quite metaphorical, the titles of their songs, for the position that Angela Rayner finds herself in. But there are the Nolan principles in life, and one of those, you know, in openness, integrity, honesty. And these are fundamental principles that we expect our public servants, our public officers to abide by. And ultimately, if you can't abide by those principles, then you should not be in that job. And moreover, to actually stand in critique of others just because they sit in opposition to you and then do the same. It's a sort of do as I say, not do as I do type of attitude. And I think people just think it absolutely stinks. And, you know, we seem to have got to a point with our political class where everything is literally, well, there's nothing to see here. Don't look, you know, it's this, well, don't look here, let's look there. I mean, just to go back to the whole Tory scum and criticising the opposition, Rishi Sunak's wife, who was a non-dom, was royally criticised and hounded by the Labour Party because of her non-dom status. And actually, she sought to avoid tax, which is actually perfectly legitimate, not illegal. I've never met anybody who wanted to pay more tax, apart from some people who receive millions of pounds in net zero subsidies and then donate it back to political parties. But most people are not looking to pay more tax and minimising one's tax bill. Surely, that is a perfectly legitimate endeavour. Lying about your status, seeking to reduce your tax bill by withholding information, not giving the correct information, that is tax evasion, and that is something completely different. That is illegal. It is against the law, and we certainly do not expect our elected representatives or holders of public office, civil servants, etc. I mean, anybody, to be honest, but we don't expect them to be acting in this way. And certainly what we don't expect them to do is to appear to be obfuscating what has actually happened. And we find ourselves, well, I think Angela Rayner, I don't find myself, she finds herself in a situation where she's done something. She's realised at some point either that it's going to come out, because she's either withheld information, and it's not for me to say this will all come out in the fullness of time. I'm not making any allegations here, but it will either come out that she has withheld some information, and even if she hasn't withheld some information, if it does transpire that she received advice and that advice was incorrect, ultimately ignorance is no defence. I had a conversation with my brother actually last week, and we were talking about David Lammy with his fishing license. David Lammy, he's another case in point. Oh, I'm ever so sorry. Somebody's just pointed out I might have broken the law. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just write to the appropriate department and say, I'm sorry I've broken the law. There you go. I'm paying what I owe. Nothing to see here. And apparently, he hasn't had his £2,500 fine because he's paid for his fishing license. But, it is rank hypocrisy. It just smacks of one rule for one and one rule for another. And I'm afraid when you are in public life, it's like the old legal maxim, justice must not only be done, but it must seem to be done. So in my view, in terms of standards of people in public life, not only must they be living appropriately according to the Nolan principles, but they must be actually showing that they are doing that. And I'm afraid Angela Rayner has missed that mark by a country mile. And sorry.
Just a word about David Lammy. You've got to understand the man's starving. I mean, the man needs a meal. He's just catching the fish for sheer survival. This is an artist's impression of the foreign minister. I think it's a bit cruel. You can't eat all of that.
Well, I think he does a lot of dining out at the last, at the taxpayer's expense, doesn't he? But I just think, the other part of the Angela Rayner saga is she did the interview with Beth Rigby yesterday, who interestingly, I assume they're friends because she called her Angie Rayner. I don't know if you noticed that.
It was uncomfortable. That sort of thing's uncomfortable. It looks like, we're all chums, we're giving a good easy break.
But I don't actually understand the whole thing of that, her son and the trust, etc. It's a bit of a red herring. The whole story and the backstory of why she would want to put this property into a trust, why she would want to sell her share of the property. It's a complete, not a red herring. It's absolutely irrelevant. The only thing that's relevant is, did you fulfill your legal obligations to pay tax on your transaction? And if you did not fulfill your legal obligations, ignorance of the law is no defence. Now, the law or the appropriate bodies may take a view and say, well, you didn't act appropriately, but it's not in the public interest to to make criminal charges, press criminal charges against said person, but you will have to pay the interest and a little bit of an uplift, or however it works with HMRC. But the point of the matter is, if you're in public life, it's just not good enough to do that. That is the point. This is not the standard that we want our elected politicians to be held accountable to.
That's my issue. I don't feel that strongly about the issue per se. I feel very strongly about that hypocrisy. That's the problem.
Yes.
Labour was going on and on and on about how the Tories had their noses in the trough.
Yes.
It was one rule for the rich and one rule for the poor. She's not poor. She's
Yes.
loaded.
Exactly.
Most people can't afford to buy an £800,000 house like that. And
Yeah.
she goes on about her working class credentials. It's just not credible. You talked about Thierry defence. It's interesting how the press have delivered this. Even the mainstream media, which I watch, that you don't have to, have jumped on this. Here's an example.
Here at BBC News, of course, if you've been following events in Downing Street, this from the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. There's been a lot of controversy about her housing practices and recent moves as far as tax is concerned. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister says she's referred herself to the Westminster Standards Advisor. All of this, as we said, after several days of controversy concerning what tax she paid on a second home. Here is a statement from Angela Rayner in the last few minutes.
Yeah, first of all, Beth, it's been quite a distressing time for my family. I have a court order that was in place around confidentiality regarding my son, my family and my divorce proceedings that happened in 2023, and therefore wasn't able to give a full account of the circumstances of our complex living arrangements. That order was lifted last night. I applied to have that order lifted so I could give people the information. In 2020, my son had an award, and a trust was set up by the court to deal with his finances as part of that award with a legal trustee. And in 2023...
I don't care.
Not
I'm
me.
not interested, Angela.
No.
So you've got problems. We've all got problems, lady.
Yeah.
And hearing about us, I'm actually kind of quite interested in the divorce now. If you want to bring that up, tell us the dirt. Tell us what really happened. Just because I want the gossip, but I don't care. You're still the housing minister. You're still somebody who bought a house.
It's irrelevant, Lembit. It's completely and utterly, the backstory is just irrelevant. Did you or did you not pay the tax that you were required to pay in law? And if you did not, if you acted in ignorance, well, then what does that say about you? If you are so ignorant and you run the housing brief, which apparently she's already built 1.5 million homes, according to Keir Starmer yesterday. I think what he meant to say is she's going to build 1.5 million homes. I think she's got 1.5 million homes by the sound of it. She'll probably bring another one out of her wizard sleeve later, puffball sleeve, it will emerge. But I just cannot see how you can retain any credibility as a Secretary of State for Housing when you can't even figure out what stamp duty is due. You are asked when you purchase a property, when you sell a property, you are asked by legal people at every single stage of the proceedings what your situation are. They want your inside leg measurement. They want to know how many fillings you've got. They want to know everything about you. And I am strongly questioning in my own mind whether or not she told them about this trust or not. And I do stand by my original comment that when this trust was settled, when it was set up, she would have been advised. It was clearly a substantial amount of money. She would have been advised that she had legal obligations as a trustee, and also what those obligations placed on her, not only personally in terms of managing the trust for the benefit of the beneficiary, but also in terms of extra things that were placed on, extra liabilities that would have been placed on her. And
that's the thing. That's the thing I've got a real problem with here. Once again, I'm pretty relaxed about human weakness and people making mistakes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't set myself above that. I've never pretended to be perfect. And I tend not to damn other people for their errors and even sometimes their opportunism. What I really dislike is that Angela Rayner is this bitter. She's not just a working class woman. She wears it like some badge of pride, and then she's bitter about the wealthy, bitter about people who are landed and so forth. And then she's got her own nose in the trough, and that's the problem. She looks like she's a total hypocrite. And I would imagine there are lots of just about managing or not even managing people in the country who are going, how can you expect us to feel sorry for you? We've had divorces. We've got disabled kids. but we don't ask for
There's
special
nothing.
treatment.
This is not her story. Is not a special story, and I am sick of the whole working class woman made good.
Yeah.
I left home when I was 16 years old. I don't know how old Angela Rayner is. I think she's probably about 10 years younger than me. I'm guessing she was born in the early 80s. The early 80s, for anybody born then, a golden era of opportunity. Plenty of people from working class backgrounds have gone on to become surgeons, top flight lawyers, Queen's counsels, King's counsels. We've sent women into space. You know, all of this garbage about working class made good. I personally am sick to flipping death of hearing about it. Our country is built on meritocracy. I was born in 1973, and I have always felt that this country has given me all the opportunity I needed if I just wanted to open my eyes, get out of bed in the morning and go out there and grab it. And that's what many, many, many women have been doing in this country for a long time. And you know what? It's great that women can do it. It's great that men can do it. But, you know, I don't want to put a downer on anybody. There's nothing actually that special about it. I'm sorry. There's nothing that special about getting on in life if you work hard. There isn't.
Yeah, my parents came here from war-torn country. Members of my family were killed under the Soviet system. I don't go on about it because actually, number one, it's sort of interesting just as a story, but it's not very interesting if then I want to garner their sympathy.
Yeah.
But why should you have this job? Because I had a really bad upbringing. Because I was really lonely. Because I have trouble making friends. Oh, you got the job then. DEI. Here we go.
Yes.
You know, and this is the problem. I don't give a toss about her class. She's the only person who goes on about it. What I do care about is that we've now got a Labour Party which is descending into this sleazy mire that they were moaning about the Tories being into. And basically, it leads to a big question. And the headline here is Starmer so spineless that he won't sack his deputy prime minister and housing secretary. This is the thing. Do you think that Keir Starmer is damaging himself if she doesn't get fired? By the way, if you're watching this in the archive, maybe she has been fired.
She's gone. I mean, look, he's got nothing to lose. The last I looked, I think his approval rating was -57. This man has got nothing to lose. He's got everything to play for. It's the last roll of the dice. You know, politics is a Machiavellian dark art. And ultimately, I guess if you're Keir Starmer, you probably want her sat next to you. You don't really want her chivying away and plotting on the back benches, do you? But I think Starmer is spineless. He's also a hypocrite because I've seen footage of him recently where he said that anybody who that politicians who are in charge of public funds who avoid paying tax should not be able to be in charge and to be overseeing public funds. Well, that is exactly what she has done. She has sought to avoid tax, not evade tax, but she has sought to avoid tax, which is legitimate. So what he said is something that's actually a perfectly legitimate activity. Even that activity, his standards are so high that you should not be managing public funds. Well, on that basis, on what he said himself, Angela Rayner has to go.
Yeah, I had a rather tetchy discussion with her on a programme when Phil Schofield, remember him, left in disgrace, and Holly Willoughby followed him. They were kind of defending her, and she was moaning and bitching about Matt Hancock making money on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And I was saying, well, it's up to him, really. And she was going on. I said, well, what about your register of interest? You got all these clothes. And all three of them had a go at me. The disgraced Phil Schofield suddenly taking a side, supporting Angela Rayner. I thought, you're all hypocrites.
Yeah, they're all hypocrites. It's the old champagne socialism, isn't it? You know, and it's, you know, they want to dip the toe in the water of maybe a lifestyle that she's never experienced or never had. But fortunately, it's come back and it's bitten her on the backside. And, you know, we will see what plays out in the next couple of days. But I just do not feel that her position is tenable. I cannot believe how she's going to stay in her role. But I actually do believe by some magic or wizardry, I actually think she's going to hang on. I don't think by the weekend she'll be gone. I hope she is. But looking at the hypocrisy of this Labour government, they are a complete and utter shower. And I think they'll do anything to cover their backs and cling on to whatever vestiges of power that they can.
Yeah, nicely put. And all I'd say about this is, if you're watching the replay, we'll find out if Justine is right. My view is, I want her to stay in place. I want to have the worst possible Labour government so that there's a better chance of getting rid of them. I'd love her to be the Prime Minister. That would be just fantastic. Keir Starmer is a gift that keeps on taking. Angela Rayner would be, if there's another league of terribleness, it would be her. But I cannot feel sorry for her crocodile tears.
No.
Because frankly, we've all got problems you've got to live with. And the problem is, if Angela Rayner had said, look, I'm never going to preach about anybody else, I'll just live my life. If she'd said that when she was in opposition, and now she said that it's wrong and I accept it, but I've never preached about other people, that would be different. But she's preached, and that's the point. She who lives by the sword dies by the sword.
Agree.
But at least if she does lose her job, at least she's got a nice view from her apartment.
Well, at least if she can afford to pay the stamp duty that she said she's going to pay. But where's she getting that from? I'll leave that thought hanging.
Thank you so much, Justine. Woman, that's Justine Thomas. That is all we got time for on this one. I'll be interested to see how this develops as well. Fast-moving story, so this could be out of date pretty soon. Do have your say as well. Maybe we're being unkind. Maybe you are just not Justine Rayner, Angela Rayner. Maybe you'd like to have a right to reply. You'll be most welcome here on Unprecedented TV. Come and shed a few tears for our viewers. I'm Lembit Opik. That was Unprecedented TV and Lembit Opik Live. Have a better day than Angela.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,